Hello, everyone. My name is Ann Marley. I'm a member of the Church and Society Committee and the Good Faith Network. The Good Faith Network has highlighted mental health as an area that needs community action in Johnson County. The network interviewed Dr. Becky Alfred, our speaker tonight, as part of our process to find ways to help with mental health issues. Becky is a pediatrician, and she is currently the president of BV Well. This is an organization set up within the Blue Valley School District with a mission of supporting and educating parents as they navigate mental health and wellness for themselves, their kids, and the whole family. When Becky talked with the Good Faith Network, I was struck by how empathetic and concerned she was about both parents and youth. And I was also struck by the fact that she provided practical and helpful, realistic. I knew there was another word that I wanted to use to describe the way Becky puts ideas across. So practical and realistic ideas for something that can often be very difficult to deal with. And these ideas can be helpful to both parents and to adults, all adults, to help young people maintain their mental health. So please welcome Dr. Becky Alfred.
Thank you, Anne, and I just want to thank you guys for having me. This is a privilege to come share our message, and I always tell people, if you're willing to show up and learn about these things, you're already ahead of the game, because this is a tough time and a tough thing to learn about, and it always feels like it takes an effort to find these things out and to learn these things. So hopefully we can shine the light on just a few things tonight and make your time worthwhile and send you off with some resources or just some things that you can use practically for yourself and for your family. So we'll start my little slideshow. So let's see. Well, I was going to tell you. I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about tonight, and then I'll get to each of the things. But sometimes I was telling Ann, I'm sort of self-diagnosed a little bit ADD, so I kind of like to know what's happening. I didn't give you guys an outline, so I'll just give you an outline. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my background, and then I'll tell you about BV Well, and then we'll talk a little bit about the state of youth mental health, really prior to BV Well starting in 2018, and then since we started in 2018. I'm going to talk a little bit about this model that makes sense to me called You Are Your Child's Mental Health Lifeguard. And then I'm going to review a little bit of what BV Well has done to date and the impact that we've had. I'm going to give you guys some helpful resource numbers, and then I'll hopefully end with a message of hope and encouragement. So we can go to the next slide. So this is my family. I say I'm the short one. Now I'm the shortest one in my family. It's so weird when your children become larger humans than you are. So they're 13, 16, and 18. My daughter's in 7th grade, and my sons are in 10th grade and 12th grade. And that's my husband, Rob, back there, too. I grew up in Olathe. I went to Olathe South High School, and I went to K-State, and then I went on to medical school at KU Med and did my pediatric residency at Children's Mercy. I did 3 years of private practice and 15 years at Children's Mercy Urgent Care. I worked Friday nights for 15 years. I probably worked 99% of the Friday nights from 2003 to 2018. And then my son was starting high school, and he was kind of struggling a little bit, and I thought, I probably should be home on Friday nights, because really nothing happens on Friday nights from birth to high school, I decided. It was a great hobby job I had for a while to keep my foot in the medical care arena, but also be home with my kids. But I decided to take a break in 2018, and around that same time was when BV Well was getting rolling, so I started volunteering with them. I joke that I traded my paid job for a volunteer job. Whoops. That's okay. I know, I don't know how that happened, but it did, but that's okay. So around that time when my son was struggling a bit, and it was causing me to struggle a bit too, and I really realized that I was going to have to revamp some of my own parenting tools and some of the other things that I understood about parenting. And one of my therapists, counselors, there's wisdom in many counselors, right? I had many counselors. That's my little Bible reference joke. But from parenting littles to bigs, one time he said this sentence that pretty much leveled me that day. He said, "You can't give what you don't have." And I was like, uh-oh, I don't have it. So, and I want to give it, so I'm going to go get it. And that was sort of this mental shift I had that day. Was I grew up in a good family, but I honestly was handed a bag of tools that weren't that helpful, and maybe, again, just because they weren't helpful for today's world and raising teens. And when he said that, you can't give what you don't have, and I realized I didn't have it, that sent me on this journey, and volunteering with BV Well really fit right into that, because I was able to, you know how sometimes, I'll say God calls you to serve in an area where you really need it yourself. It's funny how that happens. I was like, oh, I'm here to help other people, and no, actually, I'm here to learn this myself. And so it's been a really cool journey to be sort of filling my tool bag with all of the things that we're learning and the speakers that we have, and putting that together with the bag I already had from pediatric training, and just sort of feeling like, wait, I'm letting go of the things that don't serve my family or myself, and I'm able to gain these new things. So that's been a really cool journey for me. So it's been, it's a different way of pediatrics is a lot of education, teaching families, dealing with kids, and now I'm teaching families and dealing with kids, but just in a different way. So it's been kind of cool to see how that's coming together. Next slide. So BV Well, as Ann mentioned, we were formed in 2018, and our mission is to support and educate parents and the community as we navigate mental health and wellness with our families. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of BV Well. The sad statistic is in around 2017, the 6 districts in Johnson County lost 15 students to suicide in just over a year's time. So it was an emergency for the districts to put their heads together and say, we need to do something. This is not okay. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. We can't be losing students like this, and how can we help? So in Blue Valley, their response was to start rolling out initiatives to help train staff and teachers and counselors that were already present. They also formed a collaboration with Children's Mercy and their social workers, and started putting a social worker in each of the schools. They started rolling out student education initiatives like Sources of Strength and Project Happiness, and then there was a peer-to-peer student organization called Zero Reasons Why that started around that same time. So really it was kind of trying to hit this, I just said hit this when I hit the microphone. That was cool. That was a pun. Anyway, so trying to hit it from all the angles. And let's see if this is when I go to I'll tell you a little bit more about the history. So at the time, my predecessor, I've been the president for 2 years, and in 2018 to 2020, the president and the founder, her name's Mandy Shoemaker, she was actually having a crisis with her teen son at the time, and she was on the Blue Valley Ed Foundation board. So when the district was starting to roll out all these programs, she was having her own crisis with her son, and she thought, we're doing all these things for the students, and we're doing it for the staff, and we need to do something for the parents, because I'm feeling very alone, isolated, and overwhelmed, and I wish there was something, and I think that might be helpful. So let's see, next slide. So like I just mentioned, this is where Mandy ended up. She said, we're doing these things for the students, we're doing these things in the school, and then there's these community things that are kind of bubbling up. And she was thinking, where do I go? Do I just Google something and then there's a million hits for what do I do when my child is in crisis? I don't even know where to go. And she felt like, am I the only one whose child has had to have a psych eval? Isn't there any other parent who can talk me through this? So she had professional help in place, but I think she was looking for an education part and a support part. Next slide. So that's where the missing piece came in. And And we really started to get a core group of parents together. We're all volunteer parents in Blue Valley. Some who have had struggles ourselves, some whose children who have struggles, some who just have a passion for mental health and wellness and willingness to serve. Let's see. So again, at that time, the other foundations that were formed in response to some of the students that we lost were Keep the Spark Alive and the Speak Up Foundation, and their efforts have been so valuable in Blue Valley in funding these programs that don't often get funding from the district or the state. And we feel like in Blue Valley, with the student programs and the school programs and the parent programs, we're just making an effort to chip away at the issues. And if you haven't noticed, I haven't even mentioned since 2020. These were all in response to things that happened even before 2020. So since that time, our role has become even more important. Next slide. So this is where we come to the concept of how we could help parents. And actually, this was in response to my own son's struggles, and then actually around the same time, my nephew had a crisis as well, and just feeling like, what are we able to do as parents? We're not trained, we don't have degrees. Is all this information that we can get, or ways that we can help our kid, is it all hidden behind a paywall? Is it all behind the doors of a professional's office? And in our committee, we just started to kind of piece together that maybe it's not, you know? So the concept of you are your child's mental health lifeguard. So you learn to swim, and you teach your kid to swim, and you monitor and guide your kid at the pool or in the ocean, and you, as they get bigger and more capable, you let them kind of go out into the water. And but you've taught them about that conditions can change, and you've told them that there might be rip currents, or you've told them there's a deep end to the pool, and then you start to be your child's mental health lifeguard. So you are up high where you can see, you're watching, you know what to look for, you know what signs to look for, and when your child has a struggle, sometimes it's just a check-in with them, are you okay? And they get themselves to the side. And sometimes there's a time when your kid can't get to the side, and you jump in, and you are your child's lifeguard. You come up to them, and you say, I'm here to help. Lean on me, grab on the float, I'm gonna get you to the side. But all of those skills are learned skills. We don't come out knowing how to be lifeguards. I don't know how to be a lifeguard. I read up on it for this, but I don't know what training, how many hours of training. And like I said, in that, you know, that's really even their advice, is that you approach them calmly. No one feels calm when their child is in crisis, so it's a learned skill. But also, as we said, that's assuming the number one bullet point, which is you already know how to swim. They don't let people be lifeguards who aren't really strong swimmers. So I think this is where we started to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to check with these parents to say, let's get real. And this was, again, my realization. I'm like, I might not be that strong of a swimmer myself. And so in order to help my child, I might need to go get help myself. And again, get those tools and kind of strengthen those skills so that then I can teach my child the skills I'm learning. And then when they are in crisis, they know my mom's a good swimmer. My parent is going to know, you know, what to do to help me when I need help. So it just kind of resonated with me. And the last point, the point above the last point, where lifeguards get kids to the side, and then they decide if they're calling for help. Everybody they fish out of the water doesn't end up, you know, needing 911 care. Sometimes it's just like, whew, that was scary. What happened? Well, I went too deep, or I tried something I wasn't, you know, or this happened or that happened, and what could we do to help you for next time? And but also sometimes it is an emergency, and they have to seek you know, call 911 and give the care until the help arrives. So that's the part where if we can train parents to be good swimmers themselves, to fill their tool bags with the skills and the hints and the tips and the things that they need to be there for their child. And then as their child grows up, this is not new information. It becomes second nature. They know that this is how we do it in this family, when things happen, and then we go ask for help. And I know that that's a very simplified model, and it's in the ideal world. But we felt like, let's start somewhere and see where we can go from there, and give parents more information, more tools, and more confidence as they approach these things. And like I said, Mandy was president for the first 2 years, so 18 to 20. And then I took over in January of 2020. And we were just kind of getting momentum in 19. Everyone's laughing because, yeah, that was funny. We were really trying to define ourselves and figure out what we were doing. And like I said, our mission being, helping parents navigate mental health and wellness. So we thought, okay, we're just going to keep helping parents. We're going to educate them and support them. And so we worked that whole late fall and early that second semester to plan our big conference. And we had a Saturday half-day conference. It was the biggest thing we'd ever put on. It wasn't the most parents we'd had, but it was the biggest event. We had 200 parents and 12 different speakers, and it was just like a whole workshop and 24 resource tables. And it was really cool to see all these parents coming and picking all these things up and talking and connecting with each other. And I just thought, after this, I'm just going to take a break, because that was a lot to plan. And that was on March 7th of 2020 that we had that conference. And I remember saying at that conference, because I had heard some stuff on the news, but we just, everybody was kind of thinking, it might be a blip. And I remember saying at that conference, like, I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're in crisis or not, you're going to learn something. You're going to come away with something. And if you're not in crisis, even better, because the time to learn these things, really, really pour on the learning, is when you're not in distress. Because the other part about that is brain science. When you're in your trauma brain or your crisis brain, you're in this lower brain. This is kind of a picture they use about the brain. So your amygdala and your lower brain, your fight or flight, and then you have your thinking brain over the top. And when they call it pop in your top, when you're in your trauma brain and you're in your stressed out mode, your thinking brain really can't even come online to learn stuff. So no wonder currently it's hard to learn stuff. So first of all, too, for all of you coming tonight to learn something, I applaud you and admire you, because this is a tough time to even make your brain learn something. So I'm still showing up, you're still showing up, we're gonna keep trying to learn. But that conference in March of 2020, we thought the next week, when I was planning on just sort of taking a break, and I was like, this will be great, I'll kind of just push a few things out through the summer. We were like, this is why we exist. This is what our mission is about, is helping parents navigate mental health and wellness, and this is all about mental health and wellness. So totally shifted to online workshops and Zoom presentations, and still had 25, 50, 75 parents logging on and asking questions and learning things. So that, I think and as time went on and the messages were very negative about, this is bad, and wanting to be realistic, like this is really tough. This is a really tough, traumatic experience, but also feeling like we're going to keep showing up. We're going to keep talking to parents. We're going to keep putting out information. And so we did. Next slide. So how do we help parents become mental health lifeguards? And that is by teaching. We have educated our community. BVWell has hosted over 40 events since 2018, including hosting local and national speakers and authors, workshops on connected parenting and an array of mental health and wellness topics, webinars and virtual events. That was a fun thing to learn. I'm sure everybody can relate in some way. We had a couple of couple of things we had to work out and a couple of swings and misses, but we made it work and kept showing up. We host documentary and movie screenings. We have regular Facebook posts, including introducing and teaching about important topics. And we've also partnered with many local organizations to host events. The support piece happens through parent connection. So either at events, which this always makes me laugh, we'll have an event and we'll say it stops at this time, and then people will be like, great, and then we're kind of like, oh, we need to turn the lights off, so go talk in the parking lot, which is, again, it makes us laugh every time, but it's like, is anyone gonna show up? And then, if one person makes a connection that is critical to their mental health and well-being, then it's worth it, and without fail, every event, we have parents saying, me too, or same, or how have you done this? And so that is a really cool thing to see. So offering support through our events, Parents Connecting. We also are just started with a Facebook series called Parent to Parent, and that is a Blue Valley parent sharing a personal story, either anonymously or with their name, about something they've been through either themselves or with their child or teen. And it's basically, there's a lot of effort to destigmatize in the community and with kids. The peer-to-peer groups, the work they do on destigmatizing is so awesome. And we thought, we probably need to do that with parents too. And tell parents, we've been there, we've done that. My kid had this, or my kid, struggled with this. And it just is what it is, and it's okay. And there's no judgment, and there's no one's, criticizing you. It just is what it is, and this is hard, this is tough. And so people identifying with each other and supporting each other has been really cool. Let's see. So the other thing that is a funny part on this last part, the last bullet point, is I posted last week, I think, and I said, if you follow our posts, you'll see that we share a lot of things for you to teach your child or teen. And I said, and if you haven't picked up on it, most, if not all of them, are things that for you to learn. So it's like, hey, share this with your teen, share this with your kid, learn it yourself while you're doing that. And that, we feel like, is that just sort of the key piece to it. So if we can help parents work on their own growth and development as a parent, and that's all kinds of things, teaching about self-care, managing our own issues, going, a goal of connection with a child over obedience, learning the 5 love languages. Who's heard of the 5 love languages? Yes, very helpful with your kid. Learning about trauma, understanding grief and attachment, communication with your kids, learning about growth versus fixed mindset. Who's heard of growth mindset? Anybody? That's a cool one with kids too, from littles, all the way from the littles. Mindfulness, I have communication twice. See, it's that important, communication. Generational patterns, that was kind of the bell that went off for me, about what kind of bag of tools I got and what kind of bag of tools I wanted to give my kids. And basically the bottom line is, when we improve our own mental health and wellness while continuing how to learn how to connect with our children, it makes a huge difference. A strong connection with your child. When people come up and ask us, how do I talk to my kids about drugs, sex, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts? How do you talk to your kids about fill in the blank? And we're like, start with building that connection. Start with being a safe person for your child to speak to. Start with being, they always say, not freaking out. Kids, the number one reason kids gave on this survey was, why do you not tell your parents these things? Because they're gonna freak out. And so if you can be a source of counsel that won't freak out when your kid says something, that is helpful. So next slide. I really highlighted the things that we have done, but these are just some of the organizations that we've partnered with. I mentioned Zero Reasons Why, and we've also partnered with NAMI, You Matter, Keep the Spark Alive, and Speak Up. There's 2 on there that I want to talk about, and one of them is Parents as Teachers. And anybody have preschoolers or birth to 5? All right, anybody kindergarten through 8th grade? And how about 9th through 12th? All right, another one. And then how about beyond high school? Or grandkids that you come into contact with? Or kids that you teach? So anyone who impacts a child, these tools can be helpful with. So the two that I wanted to highlight, one of them is parents as teachers. That's another, a new one that we are excited to partner with. One of the ladies on our committee is the Blue Valley coordinator for parents as teachers, and this gets us excited. If we can give these tools to parents of birth to 3, that's a cool thing that my mind does when I think about that. I mean, a parent learning those communication skills and learning how to connect with their child and learning how to validate their child's concern, helping their kid put words to their emotions. It's just really exciting to think. And these are things that even as a pediatrician, I mean, this is like honesty moment. It just didn't occur to me. And I'm teaching all these parents these things, and with my own children, it's a funny thing with pediatricians. I think it happens with a lot of occupations. It's like you look at your own family, I'm like, what? What would I have told myself? Whoops. I've kind of a really intense child, and I'm probably not handling that very well. So what can I learn? What can I change? What can I do? So I imagine myself with a birth to 3, and when I was already struggling with, all 3 of my kids, but definitely my most challenging one, who's a cool kid. He's really awesome, but man, he's intense. And so that was difficult. And I just imagine, like, wow, if somebody would have said, you know what? It's normal for this to give you anxiety. It's normal for this to make you want to freak out. And let's talk about how you're doing when he does his thing, and let's break this down. And if I could have said, wow, I bet that feels really scary to be out of control, instead of being like, how do I get this to stop? Or I could have said, you know what, this is what I do when, whatever. If I would have had the language and had the tools, I just think, wow, we could have been at a different place. And it's never too late. I've made a ton of progress, and even in the time I've been with BV Well. But it gets us excited to think about a generation of parents who would learn these tools, birth to 3, 3 to 5, kindergarten to 5th grade. It gets us excited for the next generation of middle schoolers and high schoolers and college kids who have been learning these tools for a decade, for most of their life. And that would really, it gives me hope to think about those kinds of things, because I didn't have it, and I think the world of today has obviously brought this issue to the forefront, and we want to, again, it just brings us back to our mission. We want to support and educate these parents and the families, the family unit, as we navigate these difficult times. The other one I want to highlight, one of the handouts you got, if you picked it up, which it's on the table out there, no worries if you didn't pick it up, you can get it on the way out. But one of the handouts has this wheel. This is the Sources of Strength wheel. And this is a strengths-based program. It's actually not just nationwide, it's worldwide. There are chapters all over the world. And I love how the mental health world approaches things from lots of different angles. So it's like, what are the signs to look for? That's one whole way to approach it. And this one is a strengths-based approach. So building up the strengths that you have, again, great for kids, also great for adults. So each piece on the wheel is different strengths that you can tap into during difficult times. There's strengths you can celebrate during times that aren't difficult. And their goal is to empower peer leaders and caring adults through the power of connection, hope, help, and strength. And Sources of Strength has a Kansas City chapter. It's called Sources of Strength Kansas City on Facebook and Sources of Strength KC on YouTube. And they have created 8 3-minute videos, which, again, 24 minutes to learn the wheel. And they're broken up, so you don't even have to watch them all in one sitting. You can do 3 minutes at a time. But so helpful to think about what, wow, I bet that feels really really scary. What are one of these, what's something that we know we can tap into during this time, and then they, to get someone, a child, a school-age kid, a teenager, or an adult, to get your brain thinking about your strengths. Again, this is the geeky pediatrician part in me. It's not just a distraction. It literally grows areas of your brain to start to shift your focus to, wait a minute, not just I'm only focused on the fear, I'm only focused on the threat, I'm only focused on the trauma or the pain, but when you take time and intentional effort to think, oh, wait a minute, I could think about one of my strengths. They say where you fire together, you wire together. So you start firing in your brain in these areas of what area could I tap into? Oh yeah, we could, I could call a friend, a positive friend. I always come to my family, or, we can say a prayer, spirituality. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I like to do something for someone else, generosity. Definitely go for a run, or, so it's like, it starts to get their brains thinking, and then when they are in the habit of, ooh, when this happens, I can do this little shifting thing and start to look at, and it's not just, as they call it today, it's not just toxic positivity, like, you're fine, everything's gonna be great, just think on the bright side. It's not that. This is brain science called Let's Shift. Can we take a second to think about any of these areas of our strengths? Because they're still there, even when things are hard. We can validate the struggle, we can validate that this is traumatic, we can validate that, oof, that probably feels really scary, or really lonely, or really frustrating. And when we've regulated those difficult emotions, we can turn towards the strengths and not be stuck in the negative emotions. So that's that one also. So next slide. Okay, this is the audience participation part. The next handout I want you to take a look at is this little half sheet on the front. We liked this quote. Our committee liked this quote. The very fact that you worry about being a good parent means that you already are one. So we always laugh because the people that are at our events, I'm like, you're already the good ones. But we always have room for improvement, obviously. I'm the walking, living testament to that. And our hope is when people show up, at our events, we think, if one person shows up, would you do it? Well, for that one family, it could change generations. And so we would do it. And when we see more than one person show up, we think there could be a ripple effect from something that someone learns. So it's worth it. So again, my appreciation to you showing up tonight. On the back is the vital resources. So now this is the part where you get out your phone and take 60 seconds, or if you just want to circle it and commit to doing it later. But one of our other initiatives for BV Well, and this came from the people on our committee, because we said, does anyone have the Suicide Prevention Lifeline in their phone? And we're like, I have a sticker, I have a magnet on my fridge at home. And we thought, we all have supercomputers in our hands that have a phone book in it. So we were thinking, why do we not have these numbers in our phone? And we thought, we're going to change that. And so it's been our goal at all of our events to have people take out their phones and put in the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. And the National Crisis Text Line, again, great for kids and teens, because if they don't want to talk to someone live, they're open to texting their questions or issues or problems. And then we have the Jackson County ComCare line and the Johnson County Mental Health Crisis line. Of course, the bottom two are local, but the top two are national numbers. And share these with your kids, with your friends, with your family members, even across the country. Ask them to put it in their phone. These are not numbers that you want to be searching or looking for if you need them. You need them right away. You need them when you need them. The other thing that our committee learned that we've been sharing with our community is these numbers are not solely reserved for life and death emergencies. And they promote it on their websites, and I even called the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and I said, I'm working with this committee, and people are afraid, because they're unsure of what happens when you call, and who do you talk to, and what happens, what does that get rolling? And he said, please let people know. We are here to help. if it's their child that's having a problem, if they're concerned about one of their child's friends, if their teenager is concerned about one of their friends, they can call and say, here's what I'm worried about, what do I do next? And they can route them to local resources or talk them through an issue. And even the crisis text line says, teens or whoever can say, I'm having a terrible day. And they can text that. And there are trained volunteers or trained employees, trained people ready to answer their questions and talk them through either a big crisis, little crisis, but he was very adamant and encouraging. He was funny too, because he was like, we're not scary, no one's sending an ambulance to your house as soon as you pick up. It's not 911. You can call and say, here's what I'm trying to work through, and those numbers can be life-saving. And I have had people ask me for those numbers since I've had them in my phone. I've had my son ask me for a friend, and I'm like, it's in your phone, remember? He calls me the captain of BB Well. He's like, you're the captain of BB Well. Do I have these numbers in my phone? I'm like, yes, hello, have we gone over this? Again, the person in charge, I'm like, yes, children, you all have those numbers in your phone. And he had sent it to a friend, and I said, do I need to get involved if you're sending these numbers to a friend? And he said, I don't think so. It's just so she has them, and then this was kind of cool. He said, I think when I get to school, I'm going to go talk to the counselor and have the counselor pull her in just to make sure, she knows what's going on. And I thought, if anything, throughout our difficult journey, we have, in our home, have destigmatized counseling, which I highly recommend to get plugged in with a counselor, just like you would have a dentist for your family, a healthcare provider for your family, is to find a mental health care provider for your family. Because even, I think, yesterday or today, my son said, when's my next counseling appointment? And I said, I haven't made one for you for a while, but I'm gonna. So I think that was enough time stalling on this slide for you guys to get the numbers in your phone. Next slide. So this was, this I alluded to a little bit earlier, and that was when announcements started to come in, and when kids went to online schooling, and when the world shut down and got canceled, and disappointment and frustration became as much of a pandemic as COVID itself. But we thought, we're going to try to teach people about mental health and wellness when the world is in crisis. Is this the worst case scenario? And this is a clip. I should have made this a clip because now we're in person. Notes for next time, but I'll just tell you what they said. Do you recognize what movie this is from? Apollo 13. So this is from Apollo 13 when, they're up in Apollo 13. They've had to fix the filtration with like a sock and a book and anything, bubble gum, anything they could find. And the guy, which I used to have his name, I'm sorry, Ed Harris's character, the command in Houston, commander in charge, I don't even know what his title is, sorry. Thank you. See, I should just ask for audience participation. It's like phone a friend, right? Help! So the flight director is standing, as everyone is, watching to see if this is going to work, and a guy next to him says, because of the trajectory and the whatever, and he's like, this could be the worst disaster in NASA's history. And he says, with all due respect, sir, I believe this is going to be our finest hour. And that's really how our little grassroots parent group thought. We thought, you know what? Everyone's talking about this is going to ruin kids. And we thought, no, it's not. Not while we're continuing to put this information out. We're going to stand here with parents. We're going to educate parents. We're going to give them good tools. We're just going to keep pumping out resources. We're going to keep showing up. We're going to validate that this is scary. We're going to validate that this is traumatic. We're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep showing up. And, in a church, you can say, the learning happens in the valley. I mean, the struggles of life have purpose. And, yes, for some people, this has been devastating, and I have friends who have had a life-changing time. But that doesn't mean all is lost, and we keep persevering. And again, for those who are willing to try again to be open to learning, then we'll just give them tools and give them validation and keep educating and keep supporting and keep standing and walking alongside. And that's what we've tried to do through these past 2 years. And we have had success. We have had parents come and say, that was so helpful, I needed that. And again, that's what makes it worth it for us, is like, this isn't for nothing. And I don't think, I think there's so much opportunity for growth. No one's gonna come through a trauma like this unchanged. So that was our motivation, is like, we don't wanna end up the same as when we started. We wanna end up better. And we're just gonna keep helping these families. And that has been rewarding work. It's been difficult sometimes. It's been unpredictable at times. Like I was saying, some presentations that go well on Zoom don't really translate to being in person, and vice versa. So that's been our challenge. But we keep going because we feel like it's a worthwhile cause. Next slide. So this is kind of our, again, just looking ahead and maintaining hope. For elementary, middle, and high school parents, we believe educating and supporting families with helpful tools will ultimately save lives now. We do think that getting these resources out to families and educating and supporting parents gets conversations started, reduces stigma, and provides support that might not have been there. And we do believe that that is improving and saving lives. For preschool parents, like I said, this is sort of our hope for the future. We believe that educating and equipping young parents with helpful tools will impact future child, preteen, and teen mental health, ultimately saving lives later. And then for the community, educating and supporting parents, coaches, counselors, caregivers, like I said, anyone who impacts a child, learning these tools is helpful. We believe our efforts will improve family and community relationships and will improve mental health and overall wellness for generations, ultimately saving and improving many lives. So even in our little, we have 20 people in our committee, and we're just in Blue Valley right now. But we have immediate goals, and we have lofty goals to impact generations. But because, like I said, if one family is impacted, you literally can impact generations without even knowing it. Next slide, please. So again, we're centered in Blue Valley. And as I put at the bottom, asking your school district or foundation or PTA about starting a parent group in your area. I encourage anyone to do that. We're happy to mentor in any way. We are underneath the Blue Valley Educational Foundation. And one part I think I told Ann, but I didn't tell you guys. Our founder, Mandy Shoemaker, because she was in crisis with her son and wanted to get this rolling, also had another family crisis at the time. Her father was passing away, and he passed away the week of our first event. And it was his wishes and the family's wishes that his memorial fund went to fund BV Well. So that's really been bittersweet for her to see the good that's come out of. We've been able to do what we've been able to do because of their generosity. But the rest of the day-to-day and week-to-week and month-to-month, doing the presentations monthly and meeting and planning and the things that we want to cover is parent volunteer-led. And we feel passionate that different groups should be rooted in their community or in their school district, so that the parents that are meeting and putting on events are parents that know parents and their kids know each other. And we do see value in that sort of home base community for the groups. But most of our events are free, overwhelmingly, and most of our events are open to the community at large. So you are welcome to follow us on Facebook, BV Well, and you could check out our webpage, www.fundbv.org/BVWell. There's a BV Well tab on the Blue Valley Educational Foundation website. But you are welcome to come to our events if any of them appeal to you, and take away, a tool or two or three, or get inspired to start your own group. And last resource I wanted to point out before we do the questions. I said, do kids come with a handbook for mental health and wellness, and how thick would it be? And actually, it's only 20 pages. When I saw this book, it's put out by the Kansas Maternal and Child Health and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And when I came across this document, I was like, wow, somebody put some work into this. And I'm also a sucker for graphic design, so it's really pretty to look at. The other really cool thing right here is the QR code. If you scan the QR code, it goes to this PDF document, which makes a whole bunch, probably 50 or 100 places in here, turn into live links where there's resources and activities. There's some videos to watch. It links to certain websites, this one's videos or games. And so this document going over nutrition, exercise, mental health, stress, friendships, suicide prevention, substance abuse, social media, healthy relationships, and then just kids being learning about their own well visits. If you were able to cover all this, my son's graduating in May, and I'm like, okay, we gotta, how many pages of this can we get through before you leave home, or see what we've already covered? But it really is, if it's not comprehensive, it's a wonderful place to start. And so I just wanted to gift each of you guys just a copy of this. And again, don't forget to scan the QR code and go to the PDF, because it's just so much to learn. And I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I just want you to know that there's something in here for you. Again, if there's one nugget that you learn out of here, then that's worthwhile to me to share that with you. And again, you can go and share the PDF with whoever you want to, too. This is a free document that's online. I think that's it. Well, I so appreciate you guys inviting me to come here. I met Ann on the because of the Good Faith Network when they had me speak, and I said, "Well, are you sure you want me to come talk about BV Well, because it's in Blue Valley?" But then really, it's kind of for everybody, and again, that's really my hope and my goal is that we kind of continue spreading this parent education piece, because I think it's critical in the whole picture of youth mental health.
I think I got it.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This ties in so well with our Good Faith Network, and I'm a grandparent and an aunt, so I need all the help I can get. Questions?
Thank you. I liked your comment that if you're here, you're a good parent or grandparent, whatever. How do we reach folks who aren't here?
That is a great question. That's kind of our big question of BV Well, because like I said, we were like, ooh, the parents who really need to be here probably won't come. I think there is power in a personal story and in a share or in an ask or an invitation. And so continuing to invite someone or ask someone or even share, that's how the ripple effect from some of these, tools and things. So sometime it might be, I have friends too that haven't come to anything for BV Well, which is, I'm like, oh, such great information, please come. And they're like, I really can't. And then they call me and say, my kid's struggling and I don't know what to do. And I say, come to one of our events, click on these links, So I don't have the perfect answer other than the power of an invitation and the power of a personal story. So if it's someone that you have who is in your circle of influence, I think, again, sharing stories and sharing things that you've learned or sharing resources electronically. But I don't know. I wish there was a way to, anyone else have any ideas on that one? But yeah, that's the power of an invitation, though. Sometimes people take, being invited 5 times before they'll say yes, or maybe even more than that, right? But yeah, that's been our BV Well question of the month every time at at our meeting. We do talk about how can we reach more people, how can we reach people who are actually, you know, who are in crisis or people who need our education and support. I hope that helps a little bit.
Actually, I have a question. Do you know of other school districts that are trying to form this?
I don't. I talked with a friend who is in the Shawnee Mission School District, and she had approached their school board for trying to start something, and then I told her to reach back with me if she needed help with that. I'm not aware of them getting that rolling yet at this point, but I know too with funding and resources, we're really lucky to be under the Education Foundation umbrella because they help us. I was telling Ann, they help us with room rentals, places to meet, places to have our events. They really help. That helps a lot because room rentals and custodial fees and all those kinds of things can add up for a small organization. But we've had people attend from the Olathe School District, from the Shawnee Mission School District, North Kansas City. We've had people attend some of our events and our conference. We invited the community to that. But I'm not aware of a group starting yet, but I hope to see that.
Other questions?
What resources can you help us for LGBTQIA young people?
We have, there actually are a bunch in here. There are a bunch of links in the back of this. I think the Trevor Project is one of them. I don't have that flagged on here, but there are, I know it's in here because I saw it. I know it was covered. I don't have it exactly, but there are links in here that at least are a starting place. I know it's not comprehensive, but there is a starting place for that in here. Again, I think one of them was the Trevor Project, but.
I don't have a question, but I just was reminded again today, maybe twice this week, it's only Tuesday, that 988 is coming soon.
Thank you, yes.
And Johnson County is ready.
Actually, I wrote that down, or I put that in my notes. 988 is starting on July 22nd, I think. July 16th. July 16th of 2022. 988 will be the mental health crisis line, kind of like 911. But 988 will basically they still will have the suicide prevention lifeline. They said those two will coexist, and I'm not exactly sure on where that will route or what that will put into place, but it'll be an equivalent but easier number, obviously. Much easier to just dial 988 if you had questions about someone in crisis or help. But I meant to mention that, so thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
You mentioned several different times about having events. Can you just kind of talk about what a typical event is, or are they typical, or how long do they last? Are they all day or hours, or what?
Yeah, sure. Well, like I mentioned, we host local and national speakers. We've done that a lot, and typically our events are in the evenings, usually from 7 to 8:30, and then with, like I said, at 9, we usually make people get out and go talk in the parking lot. So it's usually just 1 to 2 hours on the evenings. We just hosted a Saturday parenting workshop, and that was from 8:30 to 11 last Saturday. We're hoping to do some of those because we were surprised at how popular that was. We thought, are we going to be able to get people here on a Saturday? And really, it kind of makes sense too. The evenings get really full, and it's hard to get people back into a learning mode after 7 p.m. at night. So. And then that workshop was a half day. I think that was 8 to noon. And then again, our movie screenings, documentary screenings, and other webinar things. It's usually evenings. We've done stuff on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We try to kind of keep it in the middle, but usually from anywhere from 6:30 to 8:30 or 9.
watch a movie and then you have a discussion about it, or what?
So
Okay.
we've had some documentary screenings. One of them was Screenagers, and that was about teens and screen use. And so we had some experts there too to have discussion guides. And then we also hosted one called Not Alone, and that was about teen suicide. And the Screenagers one I was mentioning to Ann, we try really hard to keep our scope for parents. We've had a lot of people approach us and say, oh, could you do this for kids? This would be great for kids, or this would be great for teachers. You could help teachers, you could help kids. And we have tried to keep our events for parents, and again, that sort of education and support piece. And so our documentary that was about suicide prevention, teens could have watched that, but our goal was for the parents to come and screen it with us, with a professional to answer parents' questions. And they said, do I watch this all in one sitting, or how do I ask my kid, how do I invite my teen to watch this movie? Because they're gonna maybe roll their eyes or say they don't want to. And so we work through with the parents, like, here's how you would open this discussion with your kid. And so then here's, a few conversation starters you have, and then you go home and you can introduce and watch that movie with your kid. So usually when we're doing something, we try to, again, make the most of it and get the most education out of it for the parents that are there to learn. Oh, and we also have done panel discussions. I forgot about that. We just in February, did a eating disorders panel. We had a parent telling a personal story, her journey with her daughter, and then we had two professionals there telling their personal background stories, and then their kind of professional journeys, and then and most of that time was open for Q&A, which was really cool. We probably had 30 parents show up to that, and they had great questions, and had the parent perspective, and then this professional's perspective, and that professional's perspective, and so that's been really helpful. And at a lot of our events, we do try to have some sort of Q&A time so that we can, address people's concerns, or we take feedback, to bring up topics for next time or things like that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you guys
so
for
much.
coming. I so appreciate it. You're doing good work.
And Teresa made us cookies, and we've got coffee out there, so hang around a few minutes.
Yeah, and I'll stick around if anybody has questions for me. Thank you so much.